Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. We've reached episode 691. This is being recorded on August 24, 2022. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Spruenberg.
We want to thank all of our patrons at patreon.com/PCPer. You've become patrons of this fine art of whatever it is that we do here, and you keep the lights on, you keep us going, and we appreciate you. We've just seamlessly cut to Josh talking about his burger of the week. Take it away.
My burger. This one is called the Johnny Cash Burger. And if you wonder why, it's because it involves a ring of fire at the end of this rainbow. And what this is a double patty burger topped with pepper jack cheese, topped with freshly cut jalapenos, topped with flamin' hot Cheetos, and then as the coup de grace, extra spicy buffalo sauce. So yes, this does have a little bit of heat to it, but it's super tasty. And it wasn't overwhelming heat, but holy cow, it was tasty. And so I have to give it 2 thumbs up because I don't have any more than 2 hands. And if you're cutting this part out, I can give it 3. Never mind.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Just about went there.
Lend you a hand?
Nope, nobody's lending me a hand. And now it's time for news.
That's right, and we're going to go to our favorite source of video card-related news, none other than Video
Intel?
Cards. No, Video Cards with a Z.
You stop with...
They cover Intel news, too. They have a whole ARC tab, I think, if you click on it. Well, I don't see it up top here. There's Radeon GeForce.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't put that in your leader, would you?
I mean, wait a minute. Let's see, videocards.com. Sections.
Arc. No arc.
Where's miscellaneous?
Lord, maybe. Anyway, we're talking about NVIDIA. It's the RTX 4080, and some of the rumored specs that have come out in the last few days doesn't seem like it's going to be as crazy as we initially thought with power consumption, which may have been changed from 420 watt TBP to only 340 watt TBP. In addition to lower power requirements, apparently it's going to have faster memory. So we're looking at 23 gigabit per second, GDDR6, 16 gigabytes of that. This is from a well-known leaker, Copite7Kimmy on Twitter. Let's look at the rumored NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 series specs based on these revelations. And we would see memory bandwidth jump from 676 to 736 gigabytes per second because of a move from 21 up to 23 gigabit per second memory. And the total board power dropping, obviously. So that's promising. Throw more memory bandwidth at it, lower the board power, probably lower the clocks to make that happen. So it's all
Wait, you said lower the bucks?
Well, maybe. Lower the clocks. Wouldn't you have to lower the clocks to get the power down?
Not necessarily.
What, just change process this late in the game?
No. I'm just talking about why you'd probably lower the performance and lower the power draw. I mean, if you know what your competitor's doing, then you can.
Well, I mean, a key performance driver is the clock speed, so I think that was the ask.
Well, but, I mean, it's also what clock speed you can maintain, not just how big you can get it.
That's true. There's always the boost time and how long they stay at any particular high clock.
So you drop your power down a little bit, and you may end up seeing, effective frequencies higher.
Boosting.
And again,
boosting for too long can have consequences. It sounds like a great idea on paper.
Over 4 hours.
Yeah, and you can't.
You need to see your doctor.
Contact your board manufacturer.
Contact your manufacturer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That projected board power actually puts 750 to 800 watt PSUs potentially back on the menu for a 4080 build.
I couldn't recommend it.
Yeah?
I'm sorry. No. It seems
it's possible. Come on, maybe.
Well,
maybe.
but how many of those? How many PSUs of that level are going to put the proper PCI connector out, though?
You can just adapt it. It's going to be fine.
True.
At only 350 watts on the GPU, I think maybe an 800 might be back. Might be a possible.
As long as you don't buy a Kentucky Shrout for your processor.
Yeah, don't get the 200.
Yeah, I was going to say
30 whatever watt processor. Speaking of NVIDIA and videocards.com, the RTX 4090 is already in production, allegedly.
Well, if they were going for a September-October launch, then yes, they've been in production for a little while. I mean, the chips have been fabbed and then stacked with memory and sent to the board partners. So yeah, that wouldn't be shocking at all that they're under manufacturing. It'll take a while to get them all boxed up, and sure they'll ship them out via airplane by the for the first first batch, and then after that they'll start sending it over on the slow boat that'll eventually get here, unless they want to spend money to do air freight.
I like the call out for display outputs, which says 3x DP and 1x HDMI. You can get that with an RK380, guys.
I know.
So
nothing special about that.
For those keeping score.
Now, Josh, can you please explain to me, as the sort of financial mind on our podcast, we talked about the announcement, the sort of pre-announcement of NVIDIA earnings recently, and now I'm seeing all over the news today, NVIDIA guidance. So have they actually released the numbers yet, or are they just changing their guidance? Okay.
Yeah, no. Let me pull these up.
Okay. Here's a story at Seeking Alpha.
His name.
It says NVIDIA disaster guidance.
Yeah, so they announced today their regular Q2 fiscal 2023 summary. Revenue was $6.7 billion. Again, they warned us several weeks ago about that. Their gross margin's 43.5%, which is down from Q1, which was 65.5%. I don't think I've ever seen a 23% drop in a gross margin in one quarter. Net income
so horrendous
was
is a good word for it.
What's that?
Horrendous is a good word for it, like they use in the article.
It's a little crazy. Net income of $656 million, which is still good, but as compared to Q1, which was $1.6 billion. So yeah, from Q1 to Q2, they dropped from $8.2 billion in revenue down to $6.7 billion, and they had many things to say about crypto. Well, some odd things to say. Essentially, they knew that their GPUs were able to do crypto, but they didn't realize that they were being used as much as they were for that. And so when that dropped and the resultant crash, they were unexpectedly caught by surprise.
I was on mute when I
extreme.
Coughed. I was on mute when I heavily coughed into my hand after you said they didn't know their cards were being used by crypto.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their past several quarters, they're like, we have an amount that we do in crypto, but it's not anywhere close for what our gaming is. And we've always kind of scratched our heads at that one because we've all seen the farms. We've all seen these people that have warehouses full of things. Even small scale operations are still using 250 to 500 GPUs. And, that's a small one. Some of these big outdoor ones were, thousands of GPUs. And, instead of each one of those GPUs going to some, poor gaming kid, they were all stacked up. And now we have these open air markets of used GPUs that we see very clearly that there are hundreds and hundreds of these that they're trying to, get rid of. And we'd always heard rumors of, pallets going directly from, some partner or directly from NVIDIA, which I don't know if they actually did or not because they don't actually manufacture their own boards. They still outsource that. So yeah, they had a year. They had a quarter. And the good news just keeps on coming because I believe they said their revenue for next quarter, and Q3 usually is a strong quarter in that, you've got build up to the holiday, you've got back to school, you've got usually stronger sales than Q1 and Q2, which are historically lower performing, and they're expecting around $5.8 billion in revenue, which is down another 900 million for them, and that's kind of nuts. They've been hit hard, and this will probably be the first time since I believe 2014 where AMD will have a higher quarterly revenue, or at least they should have a higher quarterly revenue, unless they get hit by something else crazy and warn us here shortly, than NVIDIA has. So yeah, it's I mean, the hits keep on coming. Gaming has been the big one for them, and yeah, I think a lot of their GPUs were definitely being used for a lot more high production mining than they were kind of letting on. Because yeah, as you can see, it's just picture after picture after picture of hundreds of GPUs that are being used just for mining. And you know, it kind of was a house of cards for them. Sure, it looked great going up, but once you know, a couple of cards in the bottom are taken out, it all fell to pieces. You know, their data center still seems somewhat strong, but they didn't really answer the question when directly questioned. If they're going to see, you know, kind of a re-acceleration in the data center market, and NVIDIA just kind of danced around that one and didn't give them a very good answer. But that's one area where I think NVIDIA really hopes to kind of leverage to get them through this time. And yeah, they've got a lot of unsold chips there, and they're trying to get to the 4000 series. AMD is slightly better off from what we see, because a lot of their chips weren't used as much for mining, because NVIDIA seemed to have done it better with the higher end SKUs. So, and also AMD doesn't have as much market share. I mean, in both gaming and graphics and in CPU in the desktop is Intel. And because they have a lower percentage share, they didn't get hit as big as what Intel does. And a lot of those were offset by their extremely strong data center, which were, you know, all EPYC processors and some of their Instinct GPUs and whatnot. So, yeah, NVIDIA's is their share price probably is going to start heading down a little bit, because that 900 million in the warning essentially eats up their kind of net income on how they're running. So there's going to be a lot of belt tightening. There's going to be a lot of fire sales, and they're going to hope that they can kind of balance out the introduction of the 4000 series with being able to sell a lot of this unsold stock. And, you know, they've come out and kind of said that they're going to be helping some of their partners make sure that they don't get as hammered. They do have a bit of a war chest of funds from the past several years that they've done very well with. So, yeah, it's, you know, it's an interesting time for NVIDIA. I mean, they're not going to go kaput anytime soon, and they're still a strong company with a strong portfolio across the board. It's just going to be interesting to see how the fallout for this, you know, kind of tech market crash and PC crash and the crypto crash will affect them in the long run.
Thanks, Josh.
Clear as mud?
Completely.
Yeah. I think we all saw it coming, obviously, because they pre-announced. I was just interested in the fact that it was back. It's funny how this works. First of all, they're halfway through the next year somehow already. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, it's the way that they did their IPO and how they did their accounting. It's been like this ever since, 2000, 2001, I think, when they're, or a little earlier than that, 98, 99, I can't remember when their IPO came out. But they announced their quarterly things a year kind of in advance, just because of the way that all fleshed out. Don't ask me. It's strange. Blame Mike Hara. No, actually, no, he had nothing to do with that. So,
you know what? ASUS has announced a whole bunch of X670E motherboards. The full launch, I'm reading the press release via videocards.com, of AMD's next-gen AM5 platform gets a little closer. And what I'm excited about personally is the Gene. they're actually paying attention to micro ATX this time. There's going to be a micro ATX ROG Crosshair X670E Gene motherboard. Do you remember the Gene boards on previous Intel platforms that were loaded with every feature imaginable? They just happened to be 9x6 square.
I like the G form factor. I like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, micro ATX is, that was a good form factor. I mean, I liked it more than ITX just because I just think ITX is too crowded.
And look at this.
Well, you get four slots.
You get
4 memory
that full-size
slots.
PCIe and a buy one for all those buy one devices that everybody uses.
Now, wait a minute. Is that only 2 memory slots there?
Yeah, that's all you need, really. If to think about it.
Oh, come now.
DDR5
okay, all right.
is
right.
dual channel in the DIMM anyway.
But I liked the G boards having 4 slots previously.
They did. The Gene boards had 4 slots before. I've owned a couple of them. But, yeah, I mean, this is kind of what they're doing with... it's like a larger ITX board, now that I look at it.
In this case, it is. Yeah, seems that way.
Do they have a DIMM.2? I think there's some kind of vertical thing, because they have limited space, for M.2. That's really the trade-off with micro ATX these days. Because people are not doing dual GPU, and I would hazard a guess that most people use external devices over internal expansion cards, but you do sacrifice M.2 slots on smaller boards.
I was kind of hoping for a 4X slot because do these come with 10G Ethernet?
I seriously doubt it, but...
Well, you need a 4X slot to serve 10 gigabit.
Let's go to 2.5.
Come on, 2.5.
Okay?
All right, there it is. 2.5.
There's some
2.5 is good. It's good.
Marvell is this pronounced action? But it's AQTION.
Action.
Okay, which one is this? That's the
AQTION.
Okay, thank you. What I would like to see a rundown of specs. I looked through the stuff that ASUS had sent out in the press release, and it's kind of a bunch of text and pictures, but no product listings yet, as far as I can see. So I haven't seen full specs on all this stuff yet. I don't think all the boards are going to have 10G. Looks like at least some of them do. And of course, the rundown on X670E is that it has the higher bandwidth to the chipset and supports PCIe 5 all around. And it does this because it has 2 chipsets, like kind of working in tandem, which seems... It's interesting. I'm very curious to see how smooth and reliable this ends up being. Because those early leaks at the end of last year on what X670 was going to be showed that it was PCIe 4, and now it's all Gen 5, of course. And they accomplished this because there's dual chipsets to double the bandwidth.
No.
They work in tandem.
It's dual chipsets to give you more lanes, especially for those M.2 at PCI 5.
Then why is it that the 600...
They're North Bridges. They're North Bridges on the CPU, again.
Okay. What about the B600 series? Are those going to support
It's like
Gen
D2.
5? Okay.
And only a single one versus, a dual on the 670E. At least that's the information I have kind of gleaned from it all. I could be wrong.
I've heard nothing official from AMD, and I've just kind of dipped my toe into the rumors here and there over the last few months. Let's move on. Speaking of ASUS, they recalled 10,000 of their Z690 HERO motherboards. So if you like spending $600 or $700 on a motherboard, you might have to get that thing replaced, because apparently some motherboards have melted. There was an actual component.
A backwards capacitor.
Yeah, component was installed incorrectly.
Yeah.
Let's hear for quality control.
It does seem like there was a rough time in human history there for a little while with attention to detail and quality control. ASUS, what is your statement on this?
The link in the show notes is actually their recall form where people can go to get a check on their serial number to see if they're potentially affected by the problem, and I think to start an RMA.
Wouldn't you know that you were affected by the problem when things just didn't work and your motherboard was on fire?
That's a good question. It really depends on where that capacitor is in the power loading. I assume it's within power, of course, not in noise suppression on a signal line. It just depends. On maybe it's on a particular SATA, maybe it's only active in a particular power state for certain kind of CPUs or PCI particular slot. Who knows?
Here's some better news. Another display standard to be plastered on the front of every monitor, and that endless sticker that's going to be under the bezel of everything that has the HDR designation and the supposed
the 16 characters of the Acer model number.
Oh, that too. That's on the back plate, though, at least, thankfully. But now there's a motion blur rating called ClearMR. Obviously, clear motion rate. And I think I remember seeing clear motion rate on maybe Samsung TVs.
It's actually a clear motion ratio.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Because it's a ratio of the number of actually unblurred pixels to blurred pixels.
Wait, so they want blurred pixels?
Well, if you want a low rating, then yeah.
Wait, does blurred pixels give you more like of a smooth?
It's more
image?
of a cinematic feeling.
Yeah. It's.
I want my
it's
24 frames per second, and I want them
edges.
to be blurred into each other to look.
You stop. It's a callback to film.
That worked
I
well.
love 24 frames per second myself, but clear.
Yeah,
MR,
the high frame rate did not work so well. So, for instance, like the way they explain it, ClearMR 7000, the one you see there on the bottom left.
looks like a
should
FMV
have-
from Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1.
Yeah. So it should have a clear to blurry pixel ratio of between 6,500 to 7,500 clear per every blurry one. So, I mean, it sort of makes sense. It doesn't immediately make sense, but once you sort of realize what they're sort of saying, that's what they're going for.
I like the still image. Can we just have every frame look like this?
Yes, you can. Play Crysis back in the day, and it was just one very clear image after one very clear image after one very clear image.
You know what's funny? If you look at this and think about it, if you play on super high refresh and you're worried about getting like 200-300 frames per second with those, competitive games, are you really getting the clarity? Or is it just a mush?
I mean, what's your gray to gray? Because, you might have an amazing refresh rate, but how well can your pixels actually switch?
They want to standardize this. They want to standardize things. How about standardize gray to gray? Because which gray to which gray? Like any gray to any other gray?
Next, you're going to want to standardize brightness. I mean, for Christ's sakes.
I feel like I think people think that they actually have standardized brightness.
Oh, they do. And they don't realize that, I just recorded it in this dark room, and these guys recorded it in a bright room, and we don't really have the same equipment. But at least with VESA, it's a little bit better, although HDR 400 is their fault, so I say that with a grain of salt. I don't know, I'm torn. I want to see it. I want to see how they enforce it, because, I mean, there are so many monitors out there that say they're HDR, which, I mean, technically there's no way in hell you should call yourself HDR. And so I can see them saying, I'm ClearMR 5000. And then VESA claims that they can deal with the overclock, because some monitors, of course, can overclock. So they swear they can deal with this, but I'm pretty sure that, if you can, this is a 166 hertz monitor, but if I crank it down to 87, which happens to just be a multiplier of what the actual response time on the pixels is, I can jack that CMR rating way up. You'll never see it, but I can prove it in a test room. So I don't know. I think it's going to be more of a marketing thing, but it would be nice. I mean, Blurbusters and Arting's ratings, they do brilliant job at trying to show, just what you're going to get. But I mean, even still, a number of people, when I did the monitor reviews, it's like, but how is the text? Honestly, I wasn't reading it when I was moving quickly. But yeah, I guess it does get a little bit blurry, but then again, I'm busy doing something else. And if I'm playing Battlefield or a competitive multiplayer shooter, do you really notice the motion blur, or do you just notice the little bits?
All I know is that when I stream a 4K title, it doesn't look anywhere as good as going directly from the 4K Blu-ray disc. That's it. That's.
Have you tried OnLive?
It was that's the one where they smear Vaseline over the entire screen.
No, that's Stadia.
Oh, okay.
which is still alive somehow. They keep emailing me. Here's your games. Like, no, thanks.
Sorry.
It's just funny, these standards, because first of all, somebody's going to end up cheating on the benchmarks because
Did you say negative? Did you say negative latency? I thought that's what you just said. That's what I heard.
No, you're just thinking of Stadia still. But you can't have it all. You cannot have it all. You can have most of what you want, but you're not going to get something that has the best pixel response you can imagine. Or even under a high-speed camera, you're going to see like instant, changes between each frame that aren't blurry. And you're not going to have the same panel giving you the brightest whites in the world that hurt your eyes, and also the darkest blacks on the same checkerboard pattern
that stare into your soul.
Because some of them are amazing, like OLED's amazing, but the OLED panels that I've looked at don't get as bright as the brightest LED backlit, Samsung TVs. And then the Samsungs have to use very complex local dimming to get OLED level blacks on the same checkerboard. It's easy to
and
do
to be honest, if you look, different areas of this monitor have different blacks. Not all of them are as dark as others.
Right, you pointed out like light control and stuff. Like it's sensitivity of measurement devices, and getting them sensitive enough, it requires expenditure that is beyond most. And it's just, and for most people, they see bright, they see contrasty, they see color saturation, and they're happy. There's a TV store mode for most TVs, and what you see at Best Buy, it has no relationship to the way that they're being tested on review sites who put them into like a home and then some kind of cinema mode. What is this story doing on our regular news list? It's IoT. It's got to be a security problem, right?
You'd think it was, but it's not. Jeremy actually had an interesting take on this and how there's sort of this convergence, and the hackers have helped us along this road.
Helped us? Okay, we're talking
about... Well, I mean, it's not like they put out patches or anything, but...
Oh, okay.
Well, tell us more, Jeremy.
So it's HomeKit and Home Assistant is the subject here.
Yeah. So one is an iPhone thing. Home Assistant is something that Apple set up to handle their Internet of Things and gave you a decent app interface for it. But what HomeKit is a way of jailbreaking just about frickin' every IoT device on the planet. And these guys figured out how to connect the two. So you're using the Home Assistant interface to interface with things that Apple would probably rather you never interfaced with, because they probably sell something about 10 times the price that'll do it. But it's an interesting sort of take on divorcing yourself from the company that made the device. And in many cases, that company's already divorced themselves from you. And like, we're not supporting that anymore. You got to buy the new one. Logitech is really good at that. Google is really good at that. So this way you can actually keep them still useful. And honestly, from not being an iThang guy, I have never used the app before, but chances are it's going to be better design than a lot of the ones you got from your Ring or your whatever the Logitech one was that died. It's it doesn't seem like the worst idea ever. Apart from, it's a bad idea to fill your home with smart devices in the first place. But if you're going to do it, at least do it yourself.
Surprisingly, there are a number of iDevice users out there in the phone arena. Perhaps you've heard of this iPhone phenomena. So potentially, this is a way to bring a lot of those devices that never were going to be brought into the iPhone, iHome ecosystem as a bridge. This is a bridge mechanism to bring them in. I applaud that.
Let's pause here for a word from this week's podcast sponsor.
We've all had those days where nothing has gone quite right and our brains just aren't working at 100%. The last thing we want to do is answer that same customer question for the 20th time today while still sounding friendly and personable. What if your communications can always come off as a ray of sunshine even on your toughest days? Things like your common customer responses, calendar invite links, or asking for more information can all be expanded with just a few keystrokes. Bam! Enter TextExpander. You can access what you type the most just by typing a few keystrokes, which means you can communicate way better even on your worst day. holidays. TextExpander's powerful shortcuts and abbreviations streamline your team's work, so all you have to do is type a short abbreviation, and TextExpander does the rest of the work for you. TextExpander helps drive faster results for customer support, sales, recruiting, engineering, or operations. Here's how it works. Build and collect your most commonly used emails, phrases, and messaging, and more right within TextExpander. Add things like today's date, fill in the blank fields, timestamps, and more to make content feel more personalized. Then expand it. Deploy the content you need with just a few keystrokes on any device, across any app you use. TextExpander is available on Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, and iPad. It's that easy. Check out TextExpander and have a customer-facing happy face no matter your mood. Show listeners get 20% off their first year. So visit TextExpander.com/PCPer to learn more. That's TextExpander.com/PCPer.
Okay,
Let's talk about your short throw.
Let's talk about no, not just short throw, ultra short throw. Get it right, Jeremy, in your titles. It's ultra.
You know what I hate? When everybody calls everything ultra. Ultra
Exactly.
That. Ultra that.
Nice.
Is it really all
Nice.
that ultra? I'd like to think my mother back. Sorry, I can't do any more Andy Rooney. He's
Nice.
dead.
Too
Paul
soon.
Harvey's dead. You were never mind.
So is Gilbert Godfrey, unfortunately.
So XGIMI, however that's pronounced, has the Aura.
Zigme.
What?
Zigme. Or Zigigny.
Okay.
Bless
That's what
you.
I've heard.
Bless you.
They have the Aura 4K. It's an ultra short throw projector. Neo Seeker did a review. It's been a while since we've looked at projectors here. I reviewed an ultra short throw projector from Acer a few years ago.
Yeah, so if you smack it right up against the wall, like literally up against the wall, you get a 36-inch screen. 4'3" away, up to 150 inches.
Wait. That's 4.3 inches.
Yeah, you're right there.
That's the
I
beauty
need
of
to
ultra
fix
short
that.
throw. I used to set up the ultra short throw, well, until I had to send it back. But the ultra short throw that we had here for a while, I had about a foot away from the wall, and it was filling a 100-inch projection screen.
Wow.
So it depends on the lens. But here's the problem with these. This is what I would be curious to read about in the review, if they cover this. Ultra short throw has a huge problem, which is distortion. To get 100 inches, 150 inches that close to the wall, it's using a very wide angle lens. Not quite fisheye, but it's very wide angle. So there's a lot of image distortion, which has to be sort of corrected digitally. So the edges, especially like the far left and right corners, get a little blurry, a little less distinct. So it doesn't ever.
But I'll
look...
tell you what, those you can count the pixels at the bottom center.
Oh, absolutely! It's so sharp down there.
Yeah.
I think they're optically distorting it to get that throw at that distance anyway.
They are.
So
But there's one great thing about them, and this is why they're so like. I was at my son's school open house today, and every classroom has a ultra short throw right up on top of the whiteboard, because not only is it out of the way up there, they're really bright. You could see everything without any problems on the screen, even with all the lights on. There's not all the light scatter that you'd have from having the projector on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
I've had a projector set up where it was like 16 feet away from the screen. You lose so much brightness as it travels across that much space. You have to have light control all the way through this entire space. When it's right up against the screen or right up against the wall, if you don't have a screen,
As long as you use the right paint on the wall.
That too. Just don't have
You need
textured
the
walls.
reflective paint.
You don't want textured walls.
Oh, even still.
Talk about distortion. Anyway, yeah. So
You mean plaster is going to interfere with my enjoyment of this?
only if it's cracked.
it might.
Oh, no,
Just
it's patterned. It's
Just watch old
definitely
movies,
patterned.
and then you'll feel like it's part of the film.
Ah, perfect.
No,
Yeah.
actually,
But there
that'll
was
look
one-
pretty good.
Yeah. There was one other odd thing about this thing, which I thought was kind of interesting. The audio. Harman Kardon, it's got 2 tweeters and 2 subwoofers in it. They're both 15 watt, so I mean, not huge, but still. And it does DTS, DTS HD, and literally any Dolby audio that you'd like to mention. So that kind of makes it interesting that you could literally carry this around with you and, relatively fill a space.
I want to know what the shaking distortion will look like in action movies. because you're going to shake that lens.
Oh,
Shake it
you
real
talking
good?
about with the audio? The audio
Yeah.
Yeah.
subwoofer
interesting.
frequencies are going to vibrate the lens.
Interesting.
And
story.
I was going to ask that too, because it still seems you're throwing literally two 15-watt tweeters and two 15-watt subwoofers in this tiny little thing, and it's still supposed to maintain perfect steadiness. I don't know.
I don't think you can escape low frequency vibration. I really don't.
No, that's sort of the point. And here's the other thing is that, if you would like to buy a 150-inch TV, it'll cost you more than $2,800, but $2,800 for this thing is a bit of an investment.
If it's native 4K, this is cheap for ultra short throw. That's actually
It is. It is 4K.
And you can always turn the audio off and just route through your receivers.
But think about it. It could add to the excitement. If you're worried about it shaking when the bass hits, there's an explosion on the screen. Whoa, like the whole screen is shaking. I'm like the image is getting distorted. That's exciting. That adds the immersion.
It's like adding smell
More reality.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Well,
when it starts
I
to
don't know.
smoke
Smell-o-vision
during the
would
explosion
be
scenes,
something.
you're like, whoa, this is real. And then your house, like the wall catches fire.
Exactly. It's like I can actually
this is-
smell it.
This was more like when it was big to have the headphones that kicked you in the head and the chair that kicked you in the butt.
Yeah, they're IMAX theaters with, subs under your
Theaters.
butt.
Yeah, they still do
basically,
that.
so.
Yeah.
It's cool that they're trying something because, projectors are not the most popular category. And then the ones that sell well are the ones that are really, really cheap. And people do them like,
Well, but when you bought one and Ryan bought one, they were huge. Like, everyone was reviewing them. There were hundreds of models of them out, and they just sort of disappeared for some reason.
I think if you were enthusiastic and wanted to have a home theater and you wanted a big screen, that was the period of time when 52-inch TVs were considered big. And then 55 became kind of the standard along with 65. And now 77-inch TVs are cheaper than the TV I bought in 2016. That's 65 inches. And now you can get, 80 to 100.
And it weighs less, too.
84s. Yep.
Yeah. So they're less relevant than they used to be because it just was one of those things. It was like rear projection TVs. How else are you going to get a screen that big? You couldn't do it with tube TVs, and then you didn't want to do it with early generation LCDs. But this is another one of those, just like the Acer I reviewed years ago, which is a laser projector. So it uses advanced laser phosphor display. You can't replace it. It's not like a bulb that you can change out. It has a 20,000 hour lifespan, allegedly. It's only 2,400 lumens, but it's right up against the wall, so you're getting pretty much all of those 2,400, which is about what I had. The projector I had was an Epson that was about 2,300, I think. So,
Yeah, I'm not saying anything bad about this because it's an interesting product, and if you like the projectors, for that price and that density and that close, I think that's interesting.
all right, let's move to our gaming quick hits. Just look at the visuals here. I mean, if you're listening
Nice.
to the podcast, you can't see this. This looks like one of those NVIDIA RTX demos or something.
No, it's a miniature-based computer game. So, like, there's absolute minimum animation on it. Apparently, on that model, the tongue moves a little bit, and when you move the model, the bottom shakes a little bit.
This is called Moonbreaker, by the way.
Yeah. So, when I first saw this, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever the hell, I'm not really that... Oh, wait, Brandon Sanderson's involved in this? So, apparently, they got Brandon Sanderson to come up with the entire backstory and world. And if you don't read, you'll probably have no idea what I'm talking about. If you do read, well...
When does he have time to do this? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. His
He just
books
did a
are an average of
Kickstarter
what,
that made him like $47 million. That is pretty complex, and he's in the middle of 3 different books. And I don't get it. Dude doesn't sleep.
I don't think he does. And yet, that's why he's so creative. He's just sort of hallucinating the entire time. So the idea with this is that it's more honest to the old tabletop games. So there's no grid. There is no grid square, which everything now uses. So that's got 2 things. One, your little miniature has a certain amount of movement that it can make. It's not squares, it's distance. But the other thing is that it means that all the terrain and all the stuff around it. Oh, this is the Subnautica commercial. Because it's the guys that made Subnautica made this. So that you're watching the Subnautica thing. It was a non-interactive hour-long demo at the Game Developers Conference thing. So you won't find it, unfortunately. Okay. But the thing is that the entire assets of it aren't based on a grid either. So one of the reviewers was saying that there's a map where there's literally no straight lines anywhere. So it makes things a little bit different. And the idea is that you're a pirate captain, so you end up down on the ground with the opposing captain, and you've got a crew of 10 people, of which 6 you can beam down. But you've got to burn ember to be able to do that, which you earn through fighting. They didn't explain a lot of it, and honestly, I didn't have the time to watch the entire video, but I was like, yeah, Brandon Sanderson's involved in this. I'm kind of interested, and then I looked at some of the idea behind it of like the old friggin' tabletop, but without painting your miniatures or having to clean up afterwards. That's kind of interesting.
You know what this reminds
me
of?
We'll see.
The reimagined battle game in Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you remember the original game, there was that mini game where you had to defend the hill from the opposing forces. Can't remember what it's called.
I don't recall what it was called.
Fort Condor something.
Fort Chocobo?
Kent, very helpful. He says Fort Knight, and he spelled it with a K. Hey, we've reached security news. Security news here at PCPer, and it's about something near and dear to all of our hearts. Plex. Unfortunately, they had some sort of a intrusion. Yeah, they lost the passwords. The usernames, encrypted passwords, emails. Apparently nothing involving payment, but you have to reset your password.
Oops.
Well, joke's on them. I'd forgotten my password, so I needed to have it reset anyways.
I think 1Password is the only one that knows my Plex password. I don't know it.
Oh no. What if 1Password gets pwned? Then what are you going to do? Then I'll go to my LastPass backup and then...
Oh no!
That happened to LastPass, but it has not happened to 1Password.
Oh, you're right. It was LastPass. It wasn't 1Pass.
That's why you have to use
I apologize.
Use Bitwarden, because then you can just host it yourself. That's the open source one.
Just write it all down backwards.
Just write it all down in a book, like my.
But no, write it down backwards. It worked for many people.
We're coming back around to just put it on a Post-it note.
You know the people out there know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. You all know somebody, viewer, listener, who has one of those old-fashioned address books, but then they have all their passwords written inside one of the covers.
No, I work with them. And they get really upset. I lost my password book.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be reported as a security breach, but I really don't know what to say at this point.
Really? I mean, unless somebody breaks into your home and then knows what these incomprehensible scribbles of yours inside of an address book mean, you're safer than most.
Come on, it's Post-it notes. Post-it notes.
I still think it's Post-it notes?
Stack of Post-it notes starting to sound slightly more secure.
Okay, Post-it notes around
underneath
the
the keyboard
were absolutely a thing back in the day. But. So yeah, Plex. If you use Plex, reset your password. So a security story here. Software developer cracks Hyundai car security with Google search. Hold on.
I think that the title's a little bit, doesn't really tell the full story here.
Clickbaity.
This is a little bit. This Hyundai as a, and their...
Hyundai as a service?
Well, Hyundai, they did a a dashboard entertainment system, right? And they have a third party sort of within, kind of closely connected with Hyundai as a car manufacturer that built their entire entertainment mechanism internally. And they did, and here's my air quotes, everything right. They used a mechanism to encrypt the upgrades. The firmware was encrypted within. They used asymmetric encryption keys They did other encryption mechanisms. However, through very little effort by one guy who wanted to do something special with his in-car entertainment, managed to find and reverse engineer all of the pieces that he needed to create his own firmware upgrades for his car. The really, really stupid thing is that multiple times this guy found that the encryption mechanisms they used the example keys out of, hey, here's how you do OpenSSL. Here's how you do symmetric multi-encryption. It's so sad. Here's how, and the example here is, here's how you can do everything right and get it totally, completely wrong.
So you're saying that this is one example where somebody actually RTFM'd?
Yes.
Yes.
They read it. They didn't understand it, but they read it.
We're going to talk about Warhammer III Immortal Empires. Or rather, Jeremy is, because he reviewed it.
Yeah, Per Aspera is a very different Mars game than Mars Surviving on Mars. That was the game I was playing when I realized that I should be playing this a lot more because I had a review to write. Total War did something unheard of. When they put out the second Total War game, they also added the two maps together. And they didn't charge you for it. They just said, hey, here is the new world and the what we knew as the old world, and the real old world where the remnants of the Slam and that hang out. And they slammed it together into a single map and said, you bought both games? Good on you. Away you go. So when Warhammer 3 came out, we kind of figured that, they were probably going to do it. But then the Warhammer 3 game came out, and the map was... It was a good question as to how they were going to stitch everything together. So it took them a while, but they did. And so now you can literally walk from one end of the faded place to the other, or, because these guys ain't dumb, yeah, that's where it started. That's where it started right there, where you didn't explore the world because there was enough to kill you inside the city, and if you left, things worse than death happened to you. But they also included something called sea lanes. So you can wrap around from the left side of the map to the right side of the map on very specific spots. It's utterly insane. Being able to have 86 different legendary lords right now, if you've got all the DLCs, and just short of 24 races from hither to yon. And they did something interesting, which was that whereas before, and you started with the Mortal Empires, which was the Warhammer 1 and 2 together, everyone was sort of where they should be, and there wasn't much mixing around. When they did this, they dumped some ogres in the middle of the Border Prince's land. The bloody Dark Elves are everywhere, so if you like them, you can be literally everywhere. It's insane that the idea is that you've bought the 3 games, and you can literally play all 3 of them at once, and they've managed to incorporate every single DLC that they put in from the very beginning into the game. It's a labor of love. You have to be into Warhammer to even care about this, but if you even slightly do, it's absolutely insane. And the other thing that they did, which has been driving me nuts, because I'd love to be dragging my brother and my dad into this, is until now, the only multiplayer in the game was battles. You could have up to 4 different teams battling, but it was just one single Total War battle. That was it. You're now able to play the Immortal Empire campaign with friends, up to 8 of them, including yourself, as long as the host owns the first 3 games. Everyone else only has to buy the 3rd game. You don't have to buy the first 2. It does limit the amount of lords that you're able to play with, because you can't share that. But the thing is that you've got 3 short campaigns. One that sort of features the Warhammer 3 campaign with the Chaos. There's something rotten in Kislev, and there's a civil war in Cathay that you can deal with. Or you can go full out Immortal Empires of everything. It's nuts. They've also figured out that a lot of people didn't finish their campaigns, So they've trimmed down what you need to do to win the short campaign. The long campaign is still a good chunk, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. So, yeah, it's just amazing they've managed to stitch all of this together. The amount of work they put in is obscene to do it, and they've done it. Expect a lot of patches. There are some interesting bugs. There's definitely going to be a lot of balance problems because there was a reason that no one went to Grand Cathay. It's because it didn't matter how many armies you sent over, the ogres just sort of ate you and asked for more. So there's going to be some balancing issues, but it's bloody impressive. And at the same time they did this, they dropped the Champions of Chaos DLC. So they've totally changed the way that Chaos originally went to be match more what Warhammer 3 did with the Daemon Princes. So you are sort of, you're no longer encampment based like the Beastmen were. You are able to hire armies as you're wandering around, depending on what province you're in and what percentage. And essentially, it's not that there's an infinite number of troops you can hire immediately. It's just there's a percentage chance that one or two of these troops will appear. And you can take over some cities up in the north in Norska, which are dark fortresses. You've got your whole building chain to go. Other than that, if you go and you try and take over a city below there, you get to build one building just to help you spread corruption. But the nice thing is that along with this for Warhammer 3, there will be a change to the Warhammer 1 Warriors of Chaos. Totally free. So if you own that, it's going to change from being the camp-based to being the more modern one. There's also some more interesting things where we're looking here. A lot of the skill trees for the Chaos people are the same, but they've introduced this interesting technique where you can, instead of eating captives or selling them for gold, you can harvest their souls, give them to your patron, and get some interesting new troops you can hire, bonus experience. But the thing is, it costs you souls to maintain every turn, so you got no choice but to keep on spreading chaos. It's, and I'll fully admit it, when they invited me to the beta, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd love to try it. Oh, wow, you just unlocked like $200-300 worth of DLC content for me. So thank you for that, Total War. But at the same time, I did try it out because otherwise I couldn't prove that it worked for Immortal Empires. So it's not that they paid me, but I did get a little bit of benefit out of this, and so take that as it's worth. But honestly, if you're a Warhammer fan, this is pretty nifty, and the idea that I can now multiplayer with my family in a full campaign, like any other Total War game that they've put out, is actually really exciting.
So this is fun then?
It's some work, but it's a lot of fun.
I
see Papa Nurgle back there. He's doing pretty good.
Yes, I did throw that on there as a homage to tonight's gaming. So I try and pick a little something out of the show and put up on the screen.
It's nice. Speaking of that, our thumbnail this week, I had to use it because it's so attractive. It's the PC Perspective logo, but it's because a company called V-Color, which we've recently reviewed some DDR5 from, offered to send some more over, even faster stuff this time. In fact, the fastest you can currently get, which is 6600. I think it's still the fastest anybody's making. And this time, they said, hey, send us an image file. We'll put your logo on the memory. I said,
ooh, nice.
Okay. So they sent this over. And it ends up that one of the DIMMs had a logo and the other one just said X-Sky on it. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but I'll take it because, it makes a nice photo. Our logo etched into the heat spreader here on the 6600 CL34 memory. Now, originally they were going to send CL32. There was some confusion there. CAS32 versus CAS34, because I ended up running this at CL32 as well, just for some quick tests. Makes almost no difference. Outside of something like ADA64 if you're running synthetic benchmarks, but...
So don't pay the upcharge for the 32, is what you're saying?
Here's the thing about that, Brett. I'm glad you asked. The charge is exactly the same. So their retail on this is $399 for a 32 gigabyte kit of DDR5-6600, CAS34 or CAS32. Because right now, you just can't buy it anyway, so why would they charge less for CAS34? Here's a search for DDR5-6600 on Newegg. which returns 2 results, one of which is out of stock. And they're $399.99 each. These are 2 G-Skill kits. So to get the V-Color, which you can buy right from their website, for the same price, there's just not enough competition at the high end of DDR5 right now for them to charge less than the going rate, which is $399. It works. It is, not surprisingly, faster than the 3600 CL36 kit we tested before. Yeah, outside of running some synthetic benchmarks or looking at 7-zip results, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference between these. And really, as we've mentioned recently, the sweet spot's going to become DDR5-6000 once Ryzen 7000 CPUs hit, at least theoretically.
What board did you have this in?
Well, the 690 Hero, which somehow is fine. I have not.
I was just going to ask about the capacitor.
No,
you should
when
go to their site, man.
When 690 launched, I got one of these, and I don't even want to know. I guess I do.
Oh yeah, I got some both YouTube and our chat, Discord chat, both told me that when I was trying to figure out like where's that cap issue, they both said it was a memory DIMM.
Oh, then I guess I'm fine because I've tested memory with it now.
Well, maybe it's on like DIMM slot 3 or 4 because you were in 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, which I don't remember which one it goes.
Yeah, it's always like the second two, like 2 and 4,
Yeah.
I think. But updated the BIOS, got that. It ran perfectly. I mean, it's just XMP profile stuff. It's not the craziest latency or anything. I did notice that these. This is okay. We normally run Typhoon Burner to look at information about DIMMs, and that didn't.
I can't read this.
No, nobody can. This is. I decided just to be a jerk and
It's working.
Thank you. And provide the full screenshot from Hardware Info 64, because that actually did show information about the DIMMs when I got a bunch of undefined values from Typhoon Burner, which I've never seen before. But so it's SK Hynix, of course, because it's the fast DDR5 stuff. That's who's making that right now. And there's all sorts of information about these, like the nominal speed and the latencies. Normally, this would be like CAS 40. DDR5 4800 stuff, but with XMP profile, you get at 6600 CL34, and so you see the timings are 34, 40, 40, 105 at 33. If you go down to 3000, it's 31, 37, 37, 96. So I'd be happy to test these out with that speed and latency on a Ryzen platform, hopefully in the near future.
That'll be exciting. Yeah.
I'm curious about how Ryzen is going to handle latencies. In the past, I noticed that like the whole gear down mode thing I had to educate myself about, it didn't like the odd CAS latency numbers. I could do 14 or 16, but I couldn't do 15 or 17. So we'll see how that goes. New memory controller and all that. It's pretty modest looking, and I think the improvement from
the salmon pink. Oh,
it's gold. It's supposed to be gold.
It is lit, though. It's lit.
Oh, it's lit. All right.
It's lit.
The pictures.
really woke.
That's not what I meant. That's
in the pictures.
So far.
I would say this looks gold, but it was actually bright silver. It all depended on what was reflecting off of it, so I didn't want to play around with it anymore. I was like, I'll just take the pictures. It looks.
I'm sorry.
gold.
What?
It's actually
You're saying
silver.
That's silver.
This is a mirror finish silver. And I have it on this like fake wood board that I take these pictures on, and everything around me was reflecting.
You had to catch it at just the right angle to
right.
get
So with this
nothing.
shot, I took it from a low angle, so it reflected the green from the leaves of the tree outside the door. So it's
Leaves
I don't
that are
like taking
green.
pictures of mirror finish surfaces at all. For that reason, for many reasons.
Nice.
So yes, enjoy
Otherwise,
nature.
good memory.
Yeah,
Liked
it's good
it?
memory. It's fine. It's
Well,
SK Hynix.
SK Hynix.
It's fast Hynix DDR5. That's the fastest you can get right now. Samsung has launched the 990 Pro series. It's still PCIe 4, but the speeds up to 7,450 megabytes per second. Let's saturate PCIe 4 before you get too crazy about those Gen
I'm getting
5
a-
drives.
I'm getting a tingle up my leg on this.
Well, 6900 write is kind of sexy too if it's or sequential write if it's honest.
You know what I like about this? The amount of RAM. The LPDDR4, 4 gigabytes on the 4 terabyte model.
Well, but you won't see that till next year. One of the two are coming out this year.
I see. Okay,
in
but
October.
It's a gig per terabyte of like 1 gig of RAM per terabyte of NAND. It looks like.
Yeah.
Just think you could fill up that 4 gig in half a second.
Yeah.
That sounds so sweet. Up to 1.4 million IOPS random read, and up to 1.55 writes. And sequentials are up to 7450 reads and up to 6900 writes. Doesn't have a breakdown by model, so I wonder if it's just across the board. I guess that's just the...
Well, this was part of the question too.
Yeah.
And they're sort of saying 50% less power across the board as well.
As compared to the 980.
Yes.
Of course, using an in-house controller.
You ain't just whistling Dixie there because
No.
they get toasty.
Now, the 980 Pro, I'd forgotten that the writes were only rated at 5100 megabytes per second. This is a huge increase in write speeds.
It's a brand new controller.
That was 4.0 as well. Was it the 980 Pro?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 4.
Yeah, but I think they enhanced their previous generation controller, whereas this one, from the sounds of it, I mean, the problem is you got to take it with at least a grain or two of salt because this is all in-house. But yeah, if they did, that's an interesting new controller.
Well, not only that, but they apparently optimized the firmware, for the DirectX storage, just like all these other next gen SSDs that we're starting to see. That will, sadly, you have to have Windows 11.
Yeah, no.
But yeah,
Hey, it's not as bad as it used to be, Jeremy.
It couldn't be as bad as it used to be.
No, of course not. But
That's not saying it's good.
like
it's
we talked about last week, you can actually install it without having to have a Microsoft account.
It's a nice water slide that doesn't have any water with sandpaper, and it used to have razor blades, but they removed the razor blades, so it's not as bad.
I think you're probably accurate.
Look, everything Microsoft does is onerous, and we keep using their software anyway, so you might as well be on the latest one.
yeah, it's essentially free. So
YouTube says it's now fine sandpaper. It used to be coarse. It used to be 80 grit. Now it's one.
Yeah.
Now it's 150.
If you polish yourself
It's just
with really
lapping
fine
me.
sandpaper, you'll be really shiny. It's like a what is that stuff called? The stuff that takes the dead skin off. Exfoliant. It's an
Exfoliant. Yes, it's just merely an exfoliant now.
Yeah. It was excrement. Now it's just an exfoliant. It's 11:35 Eastern as we record this, and it is time for picks of the week.
Oh, huzzah.
Josh,
Yes.
please get us started.
take us away. So anyway, if
Calgon.
you are a member
Calgon.
of the Epic, what?
Calgon, take us away.
Oh, Calgon, take me away. Anyway.
Didn't work, did it?
If you have Epic Games, you can get Destiny 2 and the 30-year anniversary pack for free. I think that includes some of the older DLC that was initially done. So, yeah, it's free if you want to try out Destiny 2. I think the pack has, again, some of the older ones before Beyond Light. I can't remember what, like Warmind, and there've been so many DLCs that they've done. It's still a great looking game for being as old as it is, and I mean the art assets are pretty impressive. Gameplay is a lot of fun, a little grindy, a little repetitive, but still fun, and you get to go interesting places. And again, visuals are great. I think a friend of mine just built a 5900X machine with a 3080 Ti, and at 1440p he was getting like 300 frames per second. So it's overkill anymore, but it still looks great, and for free. So enjoy.
I just placed my order.
Well,
We
good on
pause
you.
here for dramatic effect.
Yeah, let's pause here while everybody makes sure they log into Epic and get the free game real quick.
It's good till the 30th, I think, this sale.
Oh, okay.
So you got a few days.
All right, Jeremy.
Tim and his 10-cent money giving us good stuff for free.
Jeremy, your pick this week.
Well, I mean, it's kind of boring, but my God, does Monoprice send me a lot of emails. And it was like,
They
hey,
like
do you want to
you.
review some HDMI cables? I'm like,
Yes.
no.
Yes, you do.
It's easy to say no to cable requests.
But the thing was, I looked at it and I'm like, 8K, 60 hertz, 48 gigabits. The 10-foot is like $13.
That is ridiculous.
And it's Monoprice, so you got 30 days. If it sucks, you send it back. They give you your money back. There's no questions asked. It will also do a significantly higher hertz at 4K or below. So, yeah, HDMI cables are boring, but you need them. Might be worth grabbing a few of these. There were actually a second SKU that I didn't link to that are the ones that if, those are a little bit too short, they've got a second that start at 10 foot and go up to 100 foot. And yeah, $140 is a little steep for 100 feet of HDR cable, but if you honestly need 100 feet of HDMI cable, that's actually not too bad of a price.
Hey, Brett, what's your pick this week?
You know what? Logitech.
Okay.
They make mice. They make a
Another
nice
thing.
mouse.
Yeah.
They make a nice mouse. If you'd like a wireless mouse, don't overpay. Head on over to Woot. Get their business version of the Anywhere 3 and get the very same mouse that you could have paid almost $30 more for off of Amazon or Newegg. Get the Anywhere 3 business wireless mouse for $56.
Do I have to get it in this apple white finish?
Shut up about your Apple White finish and enjoy
Well, it says right here,
Pale
like,
gray. It's pale gray, damn it.
Mac, iPad OS. Wait, you can use a mouse with iPad OS?
Yes, you can.
Since
Aren't you
when?
keeping up on current events? Stop.
I don't keep up with current events. I guess it makes sense
Sit
because their
down.
alleged desktop operating system is just Mac OS anyway. So I guess that makes...
This is the business version of the Anywhere 3. Pay less, don't pay more. Enjoy the slightly off-white version.
Okay. Now, if that was off-white, I'd be all over it, but that is more of a snow white.
It's actually more of a kind of a business gray. It's kind of that like disappear into the background of like, I'm going to be a drone. I'm just a business person. But
you
don't
just
pay more for the
failed
gaming black version.
Hey, you just failed the Apple test.
Right? I'm just trying to be an advocate for the... I'm trying to be an advocate for the person out there who's looking to save money on a nice Logitech mouse, a wireless Bluetooth mouse.
Snow White was one of Apple's design languages, and it was actually kind of a gray color. So
It was, yeah.
all right, I was going to go grab an old computer component and make that my pick of the week, but I don't think I'm going to.
And then you didn't.
Well,
Again.
hold on a second. Windows is okay as a windowing manager program, but it's just not that fully featured yet.
Are you going to bring up Bob?
No,
He's
not
gonna do
Bob.
those
Bring up
two
Bob. We're
warp,
going to
isn't
drive
he?
down there and hit you.
No,
He
it's not
is, he
Warp,
is.
and it's not Bob. Okay,
If it's
imagine a time-
clippy,
Listen, think about a time when Windows was just like a window manager in the center of his screen, and there wasn't a whole lot. There was no start menu yet. This is pre-Windows 95. One of the solutions out there to improve your Windows experience. I give you an
Mirror's
example.
Oh,
got
Mirror,
this.
you better not be right.
It's GOS.
Mirror.
Norton
No, it's
Desktop.
Norton Desktop.
Desktop.
It's even worse.
It's
What do you mean
Oh.
worse? Think
It somehow
there was
works.
It's still in
almost-
its original packaging, so it
It's-
can't hurt anyone.
Hey,
It's
Desk-
still sealed.
Desk View was a nice guess, though.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen,
Peter Norton was a genius back in the day, and then he
Okay.
sold off.
okay, I
Then
have
things
my
happen.
lighting is completely
McAfee was a
right now,
genius back in the day, too.
Yeah.
I just can't believe it's still in the wrapper, you
Did you know you
That's
can still buy
amazing.
new
Double.
copies of this for just $19.99?
you devil, you.
Wait, maybe it was only 10. I bought 2, of course. I think I paid $20 total. So
Of course. Why would you not?
because I was going to keep one sealed and then open the other. I have all these ideas for things, and I never, really follow through with them.
Oh my god.
So I don't have enough time. Cathode Ray Dude CRD on YouTube a while back did a Norton desktop video where he just kind of shows it to you and shows you every there's way too many features. It's confusing how much stuff you can do with this, but you could actually create a really compelling desktop environment for yourself on an older version of Windows before 95 came out. It's just like a piece of history, I guess, from back when Norton was, useful utilities and software and things.
I still miss their non-destructive format.
Oh man,
That was an impressive tool.
Norton Utilities was essential back in the DOS era. And look at what it became. Subscription garbage.
It's technically a virus now, I think.
All right. Can we have some kind of an outro for our show? Josh, will you give us an outro?
Josh,
let me put it on your camera. Hold
Yet
on.
again,
Save us.
we appreciate you joining us for this fine and exquisite evening of PC Perspective Podcast, where everything is entirely on topic and in a vibrant manner that attracts people to listen to said podcast. And sometimes we even enunciate things and talk loudly over each other ad nauseum. So with that, thank you for joining us.